It's good to be here.
It's an honor. So I spent a while, I don't know if you know this website, I know you know of it since you were filmed for it.
Yeah.
Called bigpicture.tv, I think it's called, or Big Picture TV. It's in San Francisco. And it's one of the first things, if you Google, which I've done quite a lot today, Bill McKibben, that comes up. And you speak on a number of different subjects. And on one hand, it was helpful for me preparing for this interview. And on the other hand, the breadth of sort of what you and many informed people like Michael Pollan are talking about, there's so many things we could talk about. So I guess the first thing I wanted to focus on was one little thing, which I found really kind of delightful that you talked about in one of those interviews, which is I understand you kind of conducted a little experiment for a month, I think, where you just ate within...
No, it was for a whole winter, October to May, and my long-suffering family agreed to do it with me, and we all had a terrific time.
Wow. Well, so what do you do for that winter?
We ate nothing that didn't come out of our little valley in Vermont. We knew it would be no problem to do it in the summer. You'd be an idiot not to eat locally then. But we had our doubts about the winter, I must say. Some of my doubts were assuaged a little bit when our local brewery, Otter Creek Brewery, announced they were going to start brewing beer with wheat from a little organic farm down in the valley. So I figured, worst come worst, I would just hole up with some of that and make it through. But in fact, we ate spectacularly all winter long. And more to the point, more to the point, it proved one of the real theses of this new book, Deep Economy, in that the greatest pleasure was simply the dozen new friends we'd made by the time spring rolled around, farmers and of all kinds. We had a real strong sense of the cultural, social, economic geography of the place where we lived in a way that we hadn't before. And no, it was terrific, and basically it changed the way we ate forever. I mean, there's the occasional banana on the kitchen table now, but we've never gone back to orange juice. We've got plenty of good apple cider, and I bet 80% of what we eat comes from our area now. And it's good fun, and it's good environmental sense, and it's good community building.
We're in the office, as you know, of David Balduke, who's the owner of the Boulder Bookstore, and he's actually one of the co-founders of the Farmers Market here. And we did a sort of panel discussion with him and some others about local economies about 6 months ago. And he said something, and I wonder what you think, if it sounds off the mark or exaggerated. He said for Boulder to be sustainable food-wise, there would have to be something like 150 farmers markets in Boulder alone. There's 100,000 people who live in the city or in the area?
I think
city. In the county.
I don't know what the...
He might have just been thrown.
Yes, I don't know what the number is. I do know that, here's a city I do know, Burlington, Vermont, near us. It's the biggest city in Vermont, which isn't saying that much, but it's probably on the scale of Boulder, There's the old sort of informal city dump is in a floodplain of the Winooski River, a place called the Intervale. And about 12 years ago, a nonprofit group took over about 120 acres of that land and started reclaiming it.
Of the landfill, or of
it wasn't formal landfill, but there were a lot of wrecked cars and things down in it. And they started, putting it in shape, and they've leased the land, this nonprofit, to 10 farms, each one of which is about 10 acres in size. Those 120 acres now provide about 10% of the fresh food that the city of Burlington eats. I mean, it's not a kind of tiny pilot project or something. It gives you some idea of what the scale is. One of the farmers who farms there on the Intervale, complete picture of the hippie farmer with the ponytail sticking out the back of his ball cap, and Half Moon Farm is the name of his operation. It's a CSA. Well, he's also the chair of the Vermont House Agricultural Committee. He's probably the second most important ag guy in the state. And he said, we were talking out in his farm one day, and he said, if Vermont was suddenly cut off from the rest of the world by some, I think we could, within one growing season, we could have the state pretty self-sufficient in terms of food. Well, Colorado's got a hell of a lot more good farmland than Vermont ever thought about, you know. It's just that now everything we grow gets sucked up into a industrial commodity food stream and disappears. The average bite of food in this country travels 2,000 miles. I mean, we order takeout from 2,000 miles away every night of the year, you know. We don't need to.
So to connect that sort of local emphasis with, as I know, as sort of your current obsession or whatever, global warming, how do those two very different things connect?
Well, let's say I want a head of lettuce in the middle of the winter in Vermont. If I go to the supermarket to get a head of lettuce, it's come from California. To bring 1 calorie of that lettuce, 1 calorie, organic, conventional, whatever you, to bring 1 calorie of it back east took about pretty much sucks if you're worrying about global warming. And frankly, the lettuce also pretty much sucks too. You know, I've traveled 2,000 miles to get here, so I have some idea of what I feel like having traveled 2,000 miles. It's approximately what the lettuce feels like too, you know. So the possibility for real environmental change is there, but just as important in the long run is the possibility for real community change. Last year, a pair of sociologists followed shoppers first around supermarkets, then around farmers markets. You've been to the supermarket, you know the process, you walk in, you visit the Stations of the Cross around the perimeter of the supermarket, you come out with the same set of items you had the week before, you maybe have a conversation about credit or debit, you know, with the cashier. When they followed people around the farmers markets, they had 10 times more conversations. So it wasn't just like a different way of piling up calories. It was a different, completely different social experience. And that kind of community building then leads to the other things that we need to do to deal with problems like global warming. It's where you learn enough about your neighbors and get enough in contact to start doing things like building public transportation systems that really work, or building local energy systems, or doing the kind of political organizing that we need to do to make sure that our leaders you know, start taking the action that they need to take about things like global warming. You know, our great shortage in this country is community, is connection. We've become an incredibly hyper-individualist, self-obsessed society, the likes of which the Earth has never seen. And, you know, in the process, we're changing the Earth in unbelievable ways. Those are deeply connected, and anything we can do, beginning in local food is a perfectly good place to start, to break ourselves out of that solipsistic, narcissistic obsession with our own damn selves is a really good thing to do.
And I think this also came from an interview I was reading by yourself. You were saying the ironic thing is